Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. And today I have a few book recommendations based off of if you like this movie, you might like this book. So I have a mixture of movies and TV shows, but if you've watched any of my videos, you probably have heard me say a handful of different books remind me of specific movies. So I thought real quick, I have 5 that stand out in my mind that I've written down so I don't forget them, that made me think of a specific movie or a specific show, and I want to give you those recommendations. So the first one that I have is if you like the movie Shutter Island with Leonardo DiCaprio. I love this movie. It's so good, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Mark Ruffalo. If you like this, I have 2 recommendations for you. The first one, of course, is Shutter Island by Dennis Lehane. This is the book that the movie is based around, obviously. And I felt like there are certain things in the movie that kind of get skimmed over, especially towards the end. And this really clarified a lot of that for me, and it made that movie as well as this book pack just that much more of a punch. I read this book a handful of years ago, and I had my dad read it this last year, and he loved it as well. This one is following Teddy, and Teddy is an investigator, and I can't remember his partner's name. I can't remember his partner's name, but Mark Ruffalo is his partner. And so Teddy Daniels is an investigator, and he gets asked to come out to this island that houses an asylum for criminally insane patients that are dangerous. And he is looking for a woman who went missing on this island. She disappeared. No one knows where she went, and he's looking into that. This book has fantastic twists in it. It is so interesting, and I absolutely loved this. I gave this 5 stars. It is one of my favorite books. I've never read anything else by Dennis Lehane, but I really want to. I'm just very nervous to try something because I loved this one, but I'm afraid it was going to be a one-off. So I really want to try more from this author. He has quite a few books that he's come out with, but overall, this one, it's an absolutely fantastic read. It's a great thriller. And like I said, the twists in this are just amazing. They will mess with your head. They're so interesting, and it just surprised the heck out of me. Even though I had seen the movie, there were things with this book that still surprised me. So that's my first recommendation for Shutter Island. Now, if you don't really want to read the book that the movie is based off of, the other recommendation that I have for Shutter Island is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. This one is another one. The twist just surprised the heck out of me. This one is another one that is following a woman who is in a hospital, and she was accused of stabbing her husband like 20 times, and then she just never said a word. The act happened, her husband was killed, and she never spoke another word for the rest of the time that we know of. She's never said another word. And this man goes in, Theo Faber, who is a psychotherapist, he goes in and he has the mindset that he is going to be the one who uncovers her secrets and finally gets her to speak and tell her story of what happened on that night that made her go silent for the rest of her adult life. This book was so good. This was one of my first thrillers, and I'm so glad that this was one of my first thrillers, because this is one of the books that got me into thrillers. It is so twisty and so interesting and so intriguing, and the writing in this was fantastic, and I absolutely loved it. I really need to reread both of these books, but I absolutely loved this one. The twists in it, like I said, it kind of reminds me of Shutter Island because it's weird and it's crazy and it's like, holy crap, how did I not see this before, you know? So this is my other recommendation for Shutter Island. If you have not read these books, I highly recommend them. If you like thrillers that just surprise the heck out of you, I really recommend these because I enjoyed my time so much reading both of these books. They're both 5 stars, some of my favorites of all time, and I really, really love these books. Kind of going along this little trend for the thrillers, I do have a recommendation for a horror. So there is a show on Netflix called The Night Flyers. It is about a ship in space that they are traveling to a new colony, and they have an empath on board that he can kind of know your thoughts and know your feelings and whatnot. So my recommendation for this is, if you like The Night Flyers, the Netflix series, I highly recommend Dead Silence. My husband and I both read this book. I absolutely loved this. I gave it 5 stars. It is a horror by S.A. Barnes that is set in space. It is a space horror. I mean, that's the coolest thing ever. This book is following Claire Kovalik, who goes on a mission into space. It's her last mission before they shut down her little branch that she works for. And her and her crew are on a mission in space, and they come across a ship that disappeared 20 years ago. It's basically like the Titanic of space, that it disappeared. Everybody was believed to have died. Everybody was gone, and everybody just kind of moved on with their lives because that ship was just, it's gone in space. Everybody's gone. And they find this ship, and they go on board to try and find out what happened 20 years ago, and crazy things happen. And I loved this book. My husband didn't like this one as much, and I've talked about this quite a few times on my channel if you've been here for a little while. But I absolutely loved this book. And this book, or when my husband and I were watching Night Flyers on Netflix, we kept saying, oh my God, it's exactly like Dead Silence. And we were saying, like, we were joking around as we were watching the show, like, oh, is this going to happen? Because it's what happened in the book. So is that what's going to happen in the show? And it was really fun to do that. And so this is my recommendation for, if you like The Night Flyers, I would highly recommend Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. Again, another 5-star read. I absolutely loved this book. Super excited to pick up Ghost Station that I have in the other room. I haven't read it yet, haven't picked it up yet, but I'm really excited to try that one out. She also has another one coming out next year called Cold Eternity. That is another space horror. Super, super intrigued by her writing and to read more of her writing. But I absolutely love this book. So that's my recommendation for that one. Now on the other end of the spectrum, I'm going to change things up into romance a little bit. So my first recommendation for this is if you like the movie Blended with Adam Sandler. My husband and I love Adam Sandler movies. They're so much fun, and they're just goofy rom-com type movies. Absolutely love them. So if you like Blended with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, where they go to Africa, 2 separate families going on vacation, and then they kind of form a unit and fall for each other and whatnot, and the family all comes together, I would recommend Jana Goes Wild. This also is set in Africa. A woman and her daughter, who is, I believe, 6, or like she's young like that, they go to Africa to be in a wedding, and her daughter's father is also along on the trip to be a part of the wedding as well. However, they are not together. Circumstances happened that caused them to not be together. They're great at co-parenting, but they just never had things work out for them to be together. And when they go to Africa, she ends up running into her boss, or her new boss, I should say. And it ends up being a thing where her mom has said or implied that they had been married before, so they have to kind of pretend like they have had this relationship that didn't work out. And over the course of that time, she finally really gives this guy, what's his name? Anil. She finally really gives Anil, her daughter's father, a real chance. She watches interactions with him acting as a father to their daughter a little bit closer. She spends time with him in that role, like as more of a family unit with them, all 3 of them spending time together. And it's kind of a second chance romance that way. I really enjoyed this book so much, and it was so sweet. I loved watching them really spend time together. I liked watching the co-parenting as it should be, that they weren't snippy with each other or snarly with each other. They were actually very, very good parents to their daughter, and I really liked that. Because a lot of the times when you have relationships where it doesn't work out and whatnot, they get so snarly with each other. And it gets really annoying, and sometimes it gets really juvenile, but this one didn't have that, and I really, really liked that aspect of it. I liked watching their adventures in Africa with the safaris that they go on and whatnot, and I just thought this was a really, really cute book, and so that's my first recommendation. So if you like blended, I would recommend Jana Goes Wild by Farrah Heron. Sorry, I didn't say that before. Farrah Heron. And yeah, it was a really cute book, so that would be my recommendation for blended. My next one that I have is another Adam Sandler movie, but if you liked the movie Just Go With It with Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston, another one of my all-time favorite movies with Adam Sandler, the book that I would recommend is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. This one is set in Hawaii, just like Just Go With It, and what happens with this book is that they are in a wedding and they have their own special, the girl and the guy, Olive and Ethan, they have their own like preferences or whatever for the meals, so they have their own special meal, and it was a good thing because everybody else at the wedding got food poisoning. And then it turns into her sister, who is the bride, telling her that if they don't go on this trip for the honeymoon, acting as the bride and groom, then they're going to lose out on the trip. Nobody's going to get to go. And so Olive and Ethan set their differences aside, pretend to be newlyweds, and go to Hawaii. And then it turns into meeting up with her new boss and meeting up with his ex-girlfriend. And so the whole thing ends up turning into a total cluster of them having to pretend to be in a relationship, even though they actually hate each other at the beginning of this book. They have to go and they have to pretend to be together. And it kind of makes both of them kind of reevaluate why they don't like each other. So it's a second chance romance. It's fake dating, or fake marriage, I should say. And it was a really, really fun time. I had a really great time with this book as well. This was my first Christina Lauren, and I really enjoyed it. I've picked up a whole bunch of Christina Lauren since reading this one, as you probably know if you've watched my channel. And this one, it just had that same vibe as like Just Go With It, where like everything kind of goes into chaos because they keep seeing all these different people that they actually know on this trip, so they can't even spend time apart. They have to be together. They have to be going out to dinners and doing things just in case if they run into these people that they know, and they have to pretend like they're together. So they end up having to do all this stuff together and end up falling for each other because of that. And I had a really great time with this. I don't remember if I gave it 4.5 or 5 stars, but it was definitely up there, and I had a great time. And I look forward to reading more from this author, but that was just the movie that I thought of for reading this book. And last but not least, I have my most recent read. So this one is, if you like Big Bang Theory, then I think you will like The Rosie Project by Graham Simsian. My thoughts throughout reading this book was, this is like the Big Bang Theory fan fiction, but put Sheldon and Penny together. So this is about Don. His name is Donald, not Sheldon, but this is a book about Don, and he's a little different. Not diagnosed in any specific way. However, it is a look into autism. And he has his life the way that he wants it, but he also wants to find a wife. And so with trying to find a wife, he puts together a questionnaire for the women that he's dating or potentially going to date, and trying to narrow down the odds, basically. So there's questions of like, do you smoke? Are you vegetarian? Do you have a favorite flavor of ice cream? Because he had an incident with a woman that they were going to go across the road for ice cream. They didn't have the flavor that she liked, and so she left. And So that was one of his questions, stuff like that, just to try and narrow things down. He also works in as a genetics professor. I should have said that. But one day he meets Rosie, and Rosie is kind of just a wild card. She has dyed hair, she smokes, she's a bartender, and she just is everything he's not looking for in a woman. But she comes to him. They have kind of an awkward sort of date where he finds out that she's completely incompatible to him, and then he's still like, they end up having dinner and talking, but she ends up asking him for help with a project, and that project is, because of him working in genetics, is to try and help her find her biological father. And he ends up agreeing to help. And throughout the course of this book, he ends up finding that he's actually, even though according to his thoughts and his research or his questionnaires, whatever, he thinks that they're completely incompatible, but he finds himself enjoying his time with her more and more and more. He's branching out, he's trying new things, he's a little bit less strict with his schedule, and he ends up just having a whole lot of fun with her and really enjoys spending time with her. And it was really cute. And I think that it kind of distracted me from my reading by how much I was thinking of this book as like Sheldon and Penny from The Big Bang Theory. And it has a little bit of the comedy in here too, because he just has kind of a dry, different sense of humor. But it was just little things where like he would say something and he would be completely serious, and then it would just kind of crack her up because it was just like an oddball thing to say because it's just the kind of person that he was. And I thought it was really cute. So this is my last recommendation. If you like The Big Bang Theory, I would recommend The Rosie Project by Graham Simsian. This is also set in Australia. So it's like Big Bang Theory, but Sheldon and Penny is set in Australia. So that's kind of fun. I don't read a lot of books based out of Australia, so I thought that was kind of fun. Threw me for a loop at first. This one is also written entirely from Dawn's point of view, which is also a pretty new thing for me. I've read T.J. Klune, so like obviously I'm not, I have read books that are from the man's perspective. I just haven't read a lot that are like this, where it's just from his perspective. So that was definitely something interesting going into this one as well, and that stood out to me when I first started it. So that's my last recommendation. So these are my recommendations for you, that if you like these movies, that I think you might enjoy some of these books. Have you read any of these? Do you have the same feelings that I do about kind of the correlation between the two? Are there any others that you would recommend that if you like these movies, or other movies that you enjoy that would work with these books? Please let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe down below, and I will see you next week for my December TBR. Bye.